I have to start again. Technical hitch. The computer went off as I was trying to do the video, so I'll have to start again. Corruption is here to stay in Kenya. For it to end, Kenya must die and then rise again. The Europeans built Kenya on a corrupt system. The pro-independence leaders perpetuated that system, and the current crop of leaders, they have perfected that system. So it's here to stay because it started that way. It started with corruption. And just to mention the key points that I had, no one broke this system. It is the way it is, the way it's supposed to function. The man and the dog are working together. By man and dog, I mean the people in power and the opposition. They are working together. And we are the sheep. Death is a new start. We must not fear it. Because in the end, death leads to life. Right? So those are my points for today. And why did I come up with this topic? I came up with this topic because the EACC wants to have a new CEO. His name is Twalib Abdallah Mbarack. So that's the guy they want as their CEO. He was a military officer from 1984 to 1999 in the military. I'll give an overview of corruption in the military later. And then he joined the National Intelligence Services in 2006. He served with the EACC until 2010. So he was in the EACC. Why did he leave? What did he do there? Very important questions, right? And then he will replace somebody called Halake Wako. I don't know this guy. Perhaps you know him. I do not know him. And not knowing him gives me an idea that perhaps he's not doing what he was supposed to do. Again, I want the examples that I had of the US, J. Edgar Hoover. Everybody knew him. Elliot Ness and the Untouchables, everybody knew them because they fought against the US mafia and the anti-prohibitionists, right? They actually fought. So I remember those people. I don't remember these guys. So that's just an overview. So no one broke the system. I wanted to start with that. We are trying to fix a system that is working as the people who held compelling force at that time designed it to work. So who are the people who held the compelling force? I believe that the colonialists held that compelling force. And they used that to design the system that is stealing from us. What did he have before the system? What did he have? There's somebody called Benson from Nigeria, and he spoke about two kinds of thoughts, the Afrocentric school and the colonialist school. The Afrocentric school says that African leaders were not corrupt, right? They were responsible and responsive to their subjects. They moved with a communal spirit. That's what guided their operation. So that's the Afrocentric school. And then just to continue on that school, the basis of their legitimacy was tradition. Tradition was the one that gave them the legitimacy to rule. And how did this tradition came about? It came about because the people had a history. They had moral and social values, and this build-up of history and moral and social values, it came up to tradition, and that tradition gave them legitimacy. Because now, when they're in power, they could invoke their traditions, they could invoke their values from way back when, right? They didn't have books, but they could invoke their values from way back when. And that's how they survived. And me, I am of this view as well. Now, Benson is from Nigeria, like I said, and what he does is that Nigeria had a lot of interaction with other peoples, and so I think there's a lot of those interactions, they came about and they brought a lot of corruption within Nigeria, right? So his study, in my opinion, is basically limited to West Africa, where corruption was a bit entrenched within that society even before the colonialists came. In East and Sub-Saharan Africa, I do not find that, right? And it's not only me who does not find that. There's Molinge Munyai from USA. He also does not find that, right? Because he says the incidence of corruption, right, can be understood in the context of colonization. That's what he says. And he says that material inducements, what the gifts, the bribes that the British that the French gave to African leaders to collaborate, right? Those were the building blocks of corruption in Africa, because after they collaborate, they came in power. And what happened after they came in power? I'll give an example. There's Wangua Makeri. She entered into a relationship with another, the chief of Fort Hall. His name was Karuri Wagakure, right? And the husband found out about this this relationship, right? So this thing started way back when. And so the chief of Fort Hall, what he did was that he offered the husband of Wangua Makeri, he offered the husband a position as the headman of their village. And the husband refused. So he offered it to the wife, and the wife accepted. And that's how she became the first female headman amongst the Kikuyu, and I think in Kenya, right? So now you can see, first the colonialists come, they give people gifts, right? And the second thing is that they give those who receive those gifts, they are given position as soon as they surrender our sovereignty. And when they are given position, they now take advantage. They take advantage. And they use that position to gain what they want. And that's how it all started. That's how it all started. The system was built on corruption. And so what happens? There is somebody called Daniel Kaufman. He's from the World Bank. And this is what he says. That corruption, the concept of corruption, we limit it too much. It extends to legal corruption, right? Where people abuse power within the confines of the law. And I'll give examples of this. People like the MPs and everybody, they go to parliament, they develop laws, those laws that perpetuate corruption, that facilitate, they do not fight, they facilitate corruption. And after they do that, they receive their due. And then when the people complain, they change the laws, not to end corruption, but to perpetuate it again in a different format. So that's what he argues, and I think that will be kind of like what I'll be showing as we go on. Now, the maize scandal, we have talked a lot about the maize scandal, right? Did you know that there was a maize scandal in 1965? There was a maize scandal in 1965. And guess who was involved in that maize scandal? His name was Paul Ngei. He's an independence hero. An independence hero involved in the maize scandal in 1965. These things did not start today, right? So what happened during that time? Paul Ngei, unsurprisingly, he had a wife. His wife's name was Emma. Emma is a very nice name, right? So what Emma was doing was that she was buying maize directly from farmers, which was illegal at that time, right? Because the law was that they were to buy maize from it's called what, the Commission of Maize. Oh, sorry, it was they were to buy from a certain commission, right? They're not to buy directly from the farmers, but she went ahead and bought directly from the farmers, right? So they say that maize scandal caused a shortage during that time, right? And that I think was a bit sad, but it happened, and it started with Paul Ngei. And I wanted to go to another example. His name was to another definition of corruption, right? There's an economist called Ian Senior, right? And Ian Senior says that corruption is the case where you provide a good secretly to a person who is in power so that they can benefit you, right? And Ian said this because it's a perfect example of what Ngei was doing, or his wife was doing. There was some secret dealings right there, and they use those secret dealings to do whatever they want to do, right? So let's get to the next point. I wanted to go to the Moi regime right now. So we've done that. I think I finished with the Kenyatta regime. Now let me go to the Moi regime. The Moi regime, it started out in I think we all remember the Goldenberg scandal back in the day. And what happened was that people were paid a lot of money to steal. They were paid a lot of money. I think it cost Kenya 10% of the country's annual GDP, which I think was very, very sad. And it was who benefit from it? A certain person benefit from it. Again, another definition of corruption: the illegitimate use of public power to benefit a private interest, right? So that's what happened during that time, during the Moi regime. Again, corruption is continuing. So anyway, I wanted to give another example. Now we come to the military stuff. During the Moi regime, there was a 360 million shilling helicopter servicing contract awarded to guys in South Africa. Military officials themselves, they said it was too extravagant, right? And the services could have been done in Kenya, but they went ahead and paid for it, right? For the servicing of Puma helicopters. So again, you can see corruption is continuing from the Moi regime, from the Kenyatta regime, and yeah. Again, Mr. Mbarack, the guy, Twalib, the guy they want to become the CEO of East Africa Commission, he served in the military from 1984 to 1999. He served during that time, and this was before 1999 that this military scandal took place, the Puma helicopters from South Africa. So again, we need to know what he did in the military, whether it was productive or counterproductive, and whether, yeah, we need to check whether we need to study that perhaps there's something that he did or did not do that might be missing. Again, I'm not saying he was involved in this scandal. I'm just saying that there were scandals in the military, many scandals. So anyway, moving on to Kibaki. So colonialists started it. Even the maize scandal started during the Kenyatta regime. People benefiting themselves. Under the Moi regime, people continue benefiting themselves. Now it's moved to private individuals who are now benefiting. And now we move to Kibaki, right? Kibaki again is the military. Our 4.1 billion Navy deal scandal, right? And who was the beneficiary? Anura Pereira, an individual. Again, illegitimate use of public power to benefit a private interest. So Patni benefited under Goldenberg, and Nura Pereira benefited under Goldenberg. Now we see that corruption is manifesting itself. It's no longer just public officials who are benefiting, right? It is now private individuals who are benefiting. Paul Ngei's wife, right? And now we have Patni, who is a Kenyan benefiting, and Nura Pereira is a Sri Lankan. So we now have foreigners benefiting from corruption that was started in Kenya, right? So it's continuing to develop instead of reducing, and the years are still increasing. So anyway, a lot of corruption. October 2010 military, the Department of Defense, $1.6 billion scandal. Haji retired some high-ranking officers. The Minister of Defense was Haji at that time. In 2012, again, another corruption scandal. And the US actually say that the company that these corrupt officials were dealing with, again, purchase of Puma. This is 2012, purchase of Puma helicopters. And then even before, during Moi's time, there was purchase of Puma helicopters. As in, don't we learn something about these Puma helicopters from South Africa? So anyway, even the US was alarmed at this purchase, because they say that the company that Kenya purchased from was involved in international crime and drug smuggling. So that's it. Even the US is involved. Anyway, I hope that I've given an overview of how it's developing and growing instead of reducing. So the fight against corruption. See, we always say that we want to fight against corruption, right? John Baptiste said one time, John Baptiste Alphonse said one time, the more things change, the more they stay the same. That's what he said, right? So at first we established the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission, right? Then we changed it into the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission. That was in 2003. And then we changed it into the East African, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. So we started with the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission, we moved to Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission, and then now we moved to Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. The more things change, the more they stay the same, because corruption never went away. So now I'm back to Kenyatta, the return of the Kenyattas. So there's a maize scandal going around again. Maize scandal under Jomo Kenyatta, maize scandal under Uhuru Kenyatta. And 152 people are implicated. 2 billion was allegedly swindled. 2 billion, not small money. And who were these people? Who were these people involved? There are people arguing, Keter and the others, that these people are from the same community where the wrongs are taking place, right? Some say even William Ruto or his friends, they are part of these problems. And what did we see at first? Paul Ngei, the freedom fighter, the independence hero, was associated through his wife with corruption. Started in the independence under Uhuru Kenyatta, and it's still here. Still here. And how did they used to do this? How do they used to perpetuate corruption, right? They formulated laws. Like here, Professor Margaret Kamar, she says that a gazette notice by Henry Rotich and Willie Bett opened a floodgate for unscrupulous dealers to deliver maize to their National Strategic Reserve. Again, now we see that they're using laws to perpetuate corruption. It's legal. It becomes legal. And it becomes entrenched into society. And then when you try to change it, we don't actually change it. We mess around with it. From Kenya Anti-Corruption Authority to Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission to East African Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, as if corruption is going away. It's not going away because it was built this way, right? So Anuna Pereira, after he gets, how much did he get? He got 1.4 billion. This was under Uhuru, right? I think during the first days of his presidency. And I think there was a lot of hullabaloo about this, but he got 1.4 billion. And he's a Sri Lankan. So at first it was benefiting the official who's in power. It moved to benefiting the family of the official into power. It moved into benefiting foreigners. Right now, who are benefiting? We are making China great again, right? So people say that we need an opposition. We need opposition leaders. We need people like fighters. Like people say that Raila is a fighter, right? So Anuna Pereira, the guy who got 1.4 billion Kenya shillings, right, the Sri Lankan, he was part of the Anglo-Leasing scams, right? And guess who was also part of the Anglo-Leasing scams? Jimmy Wanjigi. And the US cables, according to US cables, he got $5.6 million. That's 560 million. That was like what the US embassy cable said was the highest payout. So the other small ones, but this was the highest, the one that they got their attention. That was $5.6 million, right? And he shared it with a powerful cabinet minister. That's what the US embassy cables were saying. So these were the Anglo-Leasing scandals. And if you remember, the opposition was very hard on the government on Anglo-Leasing. And then what happened? The same guys who were implicated in Anglo-Leasing, they came back to support the guys who are fighting Anglo-Leasing. Again, the more things change, the more they remain the same. It's all a game. It's all a game. Because the system was built this way from the start. That's how it started. So anyway, what do we need to do? We need to remember our ancestors. We have forgotten them. We need to remember where we came from. We have forgotten who we were. And this is not who we were. We were not corrupt. We had moral values. We had traditions. We had social cohesion. We did that, right? But now we don't have that anymore. Because we moved away from where we were. And we need to return back. We need to return back to the wisdom that our ancestors had, the values that they had. They are like the Kalenjin leaders. They saw a snake coming. They prepared for that snake. Back in the coast, Mekatilili prepared for the Europeans, and she fought them. Like Dedan Kimathi, he fought against the British. We need to have that courage back again. That yes, there's a system that we know, but it's time to die to that system. It's time that that system dies. And I'm not saying that it dies physically. I'm saying that the problem was we lost our social values. We lost our morality. And the legitimacy that came from those traditions that we had based on those moral values. And you need to go back to that. And it takes courage for us to go back to that. So that's what I had for today. Sorry for the technical glitches. Still learning these things. Give me topics. God bless. Still learning how to deal with distractions when I'm doing a live video. I'll see you guys later. Time to see who was there.